Welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast, where we sit down and have real conversations with business leaders that have been where you are. During these interviews, we'll dive into what it takes to improve systems and champion processes that maximize performance. Each week, our trailblazing guests share their experiences and understanding of the workforce to help inspire change, challenge our thinking, and share what it takes to successfully travel the road to profitability. Now here's our host, co-founder and chief evangelist of About Time and WorkMax, Mike Merrill.
Hello, this is Mike Merrill, your host of the Mobile Workforce Podcast, and today we have a very special guest, Mr. Josh Nielsen. Josh is the visionary behind Zencaster and the founder and CEO of this podcast recording platform. And Josh and I had a fantastic conversation about not just podcasting, but digital marketing and how it might pertain to your construction company or your entrepreneurial spirit, and how you can better leverage the tools of technology that are out there to get your message out to gain new customers. So I think you'll love the conversation today, and stoked for you guys to get a chance to listen in on this. They also have a new product called Zen AI, where it will actually clip out and schedule and share on social platforms the great content that you could share very easily, even about your construction businesses and the services that you provide. So highly recommend you guys check that out. I think you'll love this episode, and excited for you to give it a listen today. We also want to thank today's podcast sponsor, Foundation Software, and for the great work that they do and our opportunity to be a part of their family of companies. All right, here's the show. All right, so welcome on, Josh. We're really excited to have you on the podcast today.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I guess to start off the conversation, I just wonder if you would be able to share with our audience a little bit about why you started Zencaster, what it is, and really what caused you to actually take action and make this vision of yours a reality.
Yeah, so Zencaster, it's a full creation suite for podcasters and other types of content creators who need really high quality recording. It makes it so you can easily send a link to whoever you want to record with anywhere in the world, pulls them into a Zoom type of interface. When you hit record, it records you locally in high quality, records me locally in high quality. We mix that together in the cloud after the fact, so you have that same room sound, the studio quality. It really gets past the problem of if you just record like a Zoom or, back then it was a Skype call, the problems with quality of like dropouts or internet connectivity issues. And then we've expanded beyond that to offer, hosting, monetization options, clipping tools, et cetera. And so, but back to your first question, why, I think I kind of covered that. People had this big problem when we're going back a few years now. Everybody was using Skype. They were trying to do these remote recordings. Podcasters, like I think 80% of their guests and co-hosts are remote because it's hard to find a super interesting person to talk to every day, like or once a week, right from your hometown. Unless you're like the Joe Rogans who can fly people. And so just the quality issue was a big problem. We had we got our first 100 customers just by going on Twitter and searching for people who were complaining about their audience would be yelling at them on Twitter. Like, I can't listen to this. The quality is so bad. The guest is dropping out. And they'd be like, sorry, Skype messed up my podcast. And so we had all these search terms for like Skype expletive podcast, and see people that were trying to defend themselves against their audience and said, hey, we solved the problem. Come find it out. So that was a big learning point for me. And I think Twitter, people love to complain on Twitter. And so if you're looking for a good business idea, search for people venting and screaming about something on Twitter, and there's probably something there.
Nice. Griping about their roofer or their concrete guy, or right?
Exactly.
Nice. So that's really awesome. So why did you come up with this product? Aside from fixing the problem, were you experiencing that, or did you have friends? Where did the idea come from for you to actually launch this bootstrap venture initially?
It was kind of a case of following my nose. I was actually just broadly, I was a part of a few startups. I was contracting as a software engineer for a few startups, and just caught the bug, wanted to start my own thing. And at the time, the browsers were just recently launching new ways to interact with audio right in the browser. So you could access the microphone and pipe audio around and save it and all of that. The initial stab that I worked on with a team was building a way for people to collaborate and create electronic music together online, and which was a fun project, but just for many, many reasons, it didn't work out. Music is a really hard space to get started in. There's not a lot of money. There's most people creating are not making any money, and so it's hard to build a business in there. And they're very protective of their content. And we were kind of trying to get people to share, collaborate, and remix each other. And so we kind of missed the mark on that side. But as I was pitching that business around, somebody said, hey, podcasters have a problem with their audio and getting it back and forth and collaborating with one another. And I listened to a lot of podcasts, but I hadn't had a lot of experience creating them. But started interviewing, I had several friends who are podcasters, started interviewing them, realized, hey, there's actually a pretty significant problem here. What I was hearing was they were saying it's actually so hard to get good quality from my guests, and that back then they were either trying to record on Skype, which just didn't work most of the time well enough to publish, or they were trying to train their guests, like one-off guests each week, to like download Audacity and like record themselves and export it and send them the files. And there's so much trouble. We just skip having guests a lot of times. And I was like, wow, that's a pretty major problem for a podcast, because that's maybe one of your biggest growth channels, is getting great guests onto the show. And so, that was sort of what keyed me off. And then built a prototype, put it out there in the market, pinged all those people on Twitter that were complaining about that problem. And I mean, I think almost all the people we pinged initially signed up and tried it out, at least, if not became loyal customers. It was that big of a problem that was unsolved.
Yeah, that's brilliant. You found a marketplace that was literally screaming for a solution, right?
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
Nice. It's cool that you came at it from a technical side. So you were basically a software programmer that knew potentially how to solve the problem, and just leaned into this particular issue that you were hearing a lot of negative feedback about, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we came at it from maybe a unrecommended way of like start with the technology and the solution, and then like work backwards into the problem. But after a few misses, we kind of keyed in onto the right thing, and we're able to find that product market fit. And then once we finally did kick on the paid plans and everything, it just kind of grew pretty organically from there, because it's something that you inherently use with another person. That's where the value is. And so there's always new people being exposed to the product.
Got it. As guests, right? They come on as a guest user, and then maybe if they're going to launch their own, or if they're, I've been guests on all kinds of other podcasts also, and it is interesting. There is a lot of chatter that goes back and forth about, oh, what do you guys use? Oh, how do you like that one? And so I hear all the complaints also of all the products, right? The different challenges that people face. So it is very interesting that that's really how you came to be.
Yeah, a little bit of luck for sure.
Well, I imagine there was a little bit of hard work mixed in there somewhere.
Yeah, there was definitely some hard work there as well. I mean, I thought it was going to take me 6 weeks to build the prototype.
Sure.
6 months later, I had something with caution tape wrapped around it, ready for people to try out. So
nice. That's awesome. So now you've been, what has it been, few years? How long have you actually been in the actual marketplace?
So it's actually since about 2015. So we've been in the space for a while, and for a long time of that, it was just building out that recording piece. And then what we found, again, follow your nose. We listened to your customers, and we found that podcasters had a lot of other problems aside from just getting that high quality recording. They were trying to figure out, I also have to edit this thing and produce it, and I got to get it published, and then I got to figure out how to get people's eyes on it. And then just getting more and more pulled into the content creator space as a whole, because a lot of podcasters are not just podcasters. They're also trying to get onto social media channels and grow their audience that way, and grow their audience on those social media channels. They don't just want to have a big podcast audience. They want to have an audience on Twitter and TikTok and Instagram as well. Like, find your audience where they're at, get the message to them where they're at. And, it used to be so much more of marketing and advertising was around like Google or blogging, but more and more these days, people are not spending their time hanging out on Google and reading blogs. They're sitting in the social media channels, on the Twitter, Facebook, whatever, and that's where they're spending all their time. And so, we're really interested in sort of helping on that side, because not only is that where everybody's spending their time online, but those, while you can pay to advertise on them, you can also post on them for free. And if you're able to figure out how to do it right, that feeds into the algorithm of whatever platform you're on. Now you've got, really highly effective, organic advertising that is, you're not paying that tens of thousands of dollars a month for,
Yeah, that's brilliant. So I know with our audience, and we're primarily, conversing and having conversations around the construction space and the technology sector, business improvement, how companies can be, effective entrepreneurs. Marketing is a big piece. And I know podcasts, that's really the premise of all of it, is how do we market our idea or market these conversations in a way that helps drive opportunity in business back to the main products and services that we all provide. So in your case, I've got to imagine you've seen all kinds of innovations and adaptations to even your initial idea. What are some of the newer things that you're doing to leverage this platform that you've built, where companies are able to further leverage the way that they're using your product?
Yeah, I think it really ties into that helping people get out on social media. Podcasting is, inherently kind of long form content, which is great. Like, people want to, be able to be a fly on the wall in a, fairly intimate conversation between two people, like speaking freely, being able to hear each other out well. And, even if they don't agree, they can at least fully understand where each other's coming from, as opposed to Twitter, where it's hard to have those kinds of conversations. The downside of it is it's really hard to then take that and sell it on different platforms like Twitter or TikTok or something, because some of them you can't even post long form content onto if you wanted to. And if you did, it just wouldn't convert. That's just, people are not going to engage with a 45-minute conversation while they're scrolling through their feed. And so, more and more the way that the space is evolving is people are consuming podcasts by way of the clips rather than the full piece of content. And so the full piece of content is more for like the super fans of the show that don't want to miss anything. But most people who are going to find new audience members that are going to find your content, and even people that really like your content but are not going to be able to commit to a 45-minute to 3-hour long episode, they are going to want to consume that on sort of topically relevant clips. And so that's just the way the world is going. TikTok is a big indicator of sort of the attention span that people really have these days, and they want quick, dense information where they can get in, get the value, and then go back to like whatever they were doing, rather than kind of really having to commit to a long piece of content. And so that we've adapted to that as well. And now that's what we're working on doing. We've just recently launched a AI powered tool built into Zencaster, but we also have a sidecar project called Zen AI, Zen AI, that is tailored for people who are not necessarily podcasters, but still want to create these kinds of clips to get their voice out. And it uses AI to scan your content, find the most engaging content for each different platform, format it in the right way. So if it's like TikTok or Instagram, it'll do a vertical video for you, get your headline and your transcripts going. So then you've got pieces of content that can live naturally on those platforms in the way that people are used to engaging with the content, and grow your audience that way. That's really the best way to kind of move from outside of the podcasting audience and start growing your audience on those other platforms.
Yeah, that's brilliant. On our podcast, so for the whole time, we've had these, they're kind of short. We call them the Mobile Workforce Minute. And we take those, and it is very laborious to go and find the right stuff and clip it out and produce it and turn it into a video and then format it for the platform and, everything you're talking about. So if I'm a roofing contractor, or I pour concrete, or I'm an excavator, where do you see value for a company like that to try and broaden their marketing reach and really get new ears and eyeballs on services they provide?
Yeah, I think, this is something that I'm sure these guys are facing as a commoditized market. And that's something that is, happens to really every market over time as it just becomes, there's more and more competitors jumping into the space. And so at that point, it's really about not so much about what you can do, but about getting people engaged with your story and understanding why you do what you do, why you care about what you care about, and why you care about helping them with their problem. And that's what people are going to engage with. And they're not going to be able to know that, very easily if you're not putting your vision out there, if you're not actually going out there and saying those things. It's one thing to feel that way. It's another thing for people to actually hear it. And so, I think, I saw, this is somebody else's content. I don't even know who they were, but I saw it on TikTok, and he used Dollar Shave Club as an example. He was like, there's nothing unique about razor blades and razors, and even packaging that stuff up in a way that you can get monthly subscriptions, I don't even think was unique at the time. But they just did a really great job of telling their message about their brand and getting out there and just saying, we're going to make your life easier, and this is how, and this is why we care, blah, blah, blah. And so it's so much more about that side than it is about necessarily coming through with like a breakthrough new technology or this and that. And so when you're in a highly commoditized market, so much of it is, just get the message out there. And if you look at the pros in the market, for instance, I think Gary Vaynerchuk, digital marketing guru, he famously started with a liquor store, a wine and liquor store, which again, highly commoditized market. But he just crushed it on the marketing side and telling the story, and in providing, not only telling the story, but in providing a lot of value to his audience, things that they're going to care about, things that are going to help them with whatever the problem is that they're facing, even outside of how you can sell to them. Very much like give back, give value first. And, oh, hey, by the way, I sell great wine and that sort of a thing. But if you listen to his recommendations, he's just sort of he's wired marketer from the, you can tell he grew up, he's selling baseball cards at like 8 years old or something like that. And I think it comes easy for him, but he'll say things like, all you have to do is post 5 to 10 times a day across 8 different social media channels, and you're going to win. It's like quantity over quality. Just get your voice out there and be heard. And you're like, that's simple to understand. But how do I actually do that? Like, I'm not you. I don't have somebody following me around with the camera all day. I don't necessarily have the gift of gab. And that's sort of the problem that we're trying to work on solving at Zen AI is, we'll either take your rants or your long form recordings or whatever, or we'll even connect you with a producer who can interview you and pull that message and that vision out in the right targeted way to help you create all that content, clip it up and do a bunch of clips, get that scheduled out over social, and then give you the rest of your time back to go running your business. Cause you got to do all kinds of other stuff to actually run a business and not just a marketing game. And that's what I think keeps so many people from actually getting good on the marketing side is if it's a full-time job, you can't do it. You got to be able to figure out how to portion a few hours a month to this and then get back to whatever you're doing.
Yeah. You and I were talking before we hit record, and I was telling you that our product at WorkMax came from myself and our CEO and original founder. We used to rant at each other and whine about the problem of running crews and guys and time cards and timesheets and overtime and all of the challenges of trying to run a construction business and the issues that we were running into at effectively doing that. And that was really where our product was born. And, I was telling you, all of these contractors, they're all doing it. They're just ranting to their spouse at night. They're ranting to their buddy at the coffee shop. They're ranting sometimes to their crew at lunch. I mean, we're already doing this. We're having these conversations. We're just not documenting and then pulling out the good stuff that actually, might help us to gain and attract new customers and sharing it with them. Right. And so that's awesome that you guys are looking at that from a technology and a product perspective to try and help companies do a better job of that.
Yeah, no, I think, these guys are all domain experts on what they do. They know their craft. They're probably passionate about it. And as you mentioned, they're already talking about it. but how do you bundle that up and get that shipped out? And I think another side of it is people, quite frankly, more than you'd expect, are, fear. There's a lot of fear associated with sharing your message, because you're like, well, maybe there's someone out there who knows better than me on this point or whatever. I don't want to maybe look stupid, or I just don't feel like I have a lot to say that's new. Well, it's not new. It maybe is not new to you, but your audience and the people that you're trying to sell to, it's probably are not. They're not domain experts. That's why they're looking for someone like you. And so that's a big part of I think it as well, is just getting over that fear of just sharing your voice and getting out there. It sucks. It's pretty common. I feel it too. I mean, I'm not exempt from this, and it's just one of those things that I think you can also get past by, like you said, you don't have to share everything you say, but you make those clips. Like, here's the most interesting, valuable thing we talked about in this episode, and let's at least get that out there. It makes me look good. It's highly valuable for the audience. Win-win.
Yeah. Prior to my software and technology life, I was a general contractor for about a decade. And so I know a lot about most of the trades, and, surface level to varying depths, sometimes pretty deep, hands-on experience, wiring up a house or doing my plumbing. Like, I've done a lot of those things, shingle this or pour this concrete, whatever. But I have a brother that is an expert in concrete. I mean, he's done it for 30 years. He knows things about it that I've never even thought of. And there's so many things that he runs into out in the marketplace with contractors, or when he's doing private work for homeowners. And, if he were to get on and record for like an hour, all of the challenges that he sees with different concrete and reasons why it has those challenges, he could really educate a marketplace, and people would be able to say, yeah, that's happening in my driveway. Oh, I need to stop putting the salt on it. And, I need to make sure that when my concrete contractor pours the cement, that they do it this certain way so that we can avoid this other issue. And I think, every trade has these things that aren't really secrets. I mean, they're not really proprietary. They don't make you any better or different than most of the other contractors around, but it's not common knowledge, to your point. And so I think utilizing a product like yours and getting it out in a way where they can actually share it on social media. Most of these contractors just aren't, it's foreign to them. It's not what they're used to doing. They're used to word of mouth marketing. They're used to putting huge signs and billboards on their big projects. And that's how they're gaining new customers, is through that visual recognition or maybe a direct referral. But, there's a lot of opportunities out there in this social media marketing world that, we've discovered here. I know that, again, that's your whole career in business is built on helping companies leverage this. So I think it's fantastic that you guys are doing this. And I can't wait to check into it myself, even for the products that we have, and bettering our offering here on this podcast.
Well, I'm gonna you have to connect me with your brother-in-law or your cousin.
Yep.
Because case in point, like literally 2 weeks ago, I was on YouTube, which is, I think, would be a great platform for your audience, because that's where I go when I'm trying to do a home.
Sure.
Like, trying to figure out if I'm going to
project.
Yeah, if I'm going to can I DIY this, or do I need a professional? Yeah. How easy is this? And I'll go on there, search, and they've got the long form videos, and they've also got the shorts, and they're both searchable, and they remain persistent, unlike TikTok or Instagram, where they kind of fade away after a while. So you can make that piece of content, and it'll always be there to come up in searches. But yeah, I was like looking, my driveway is spalling or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
And like, can I stop this? Can I fix this? Do I need to do the whole, redo the whole thing? And that's where I go. And I find content, and I've bought products for people that are creating the content. I had the same thing with my backyard. It's I have a hill. It's eroding away. I found there's this company that's making a lot of content about doing installations for erosion protection.
Nice.
And it ended up, I'm in the process of purchasing something from them. And so,
cool.
Anyway, I just thought, for your specific audience, I think YouTube and YouTube Shorts is a particularly great place to be posting that kind of content.
Yeah, and even to your point too, that some of these things are just basic knowledge, and maybe you do share how somebody could pour their own mailbox pad or something small, And then you highlight in that, if you want to replace your driveway or do a larger project, that's what we specialize in. And so you can add value in a different way on something that's too small for you to worry about anyway. But in fact, you mentioned Gary Vaynerchuk. I don't know if you went to Limitless Society recently. They had this big speaker conference, and Andy Frisella was there, Gary Vaynerchuk, and Ed Milet. And I mean, there was some really, really awesome. Tim Ferriss, that was a personal coach to Michael Jordan, and Kobe Bryant. Just incredible speaker lineup. And Andy Frisella said something. David Goggins was there. Anyway, Andy Frisella said something I've heard said a lot of different ways, but he said, if you want to really find a way to be successful with any type of product, is you want to find a problem that people have, figure out how you can help them solve that, and eventually they'll trade you money for it, right? So it's like you just need to enlighten the path and kind of shine a bright light on something. And as you provide value that you're not really having an expectation, you're just putting it out there to generally share and help and serve. Oftentimes people turn right back around and actually, pay you money for that idea. So
exactly,
right in line with our
provide
conversation
that value. Here. Yeah, provide that value first, and then they're gonna, keep coming back. I have a weird guilty pleasure of I love watching, what are they called? Natural pond installs. And there's a few different creators that just they'll do installs and then they'll show before and after, and then they'll have the client talking about how much they love their new natural swim pond or whatever. I don't even have a property that I could put one on, but I find it really, it's like for whatever reason, it's peaceful, serene kind of content to watch. And, when I do figure out that, I'm probably going to call one of my favorite creators and say, hey, come check out my project here. So I think, and also you're just going to find not every video you post, if you're doing different types of projects, is going to be of interest or be the top producer, the most viewed or the most highest engagement. But when you do hit those ones, you're going to know, okay, it'll just give you a good indicator of this is what people care about. This is what I'm making that's landing well. And then you can double down. It's all about sort of paying attention as well. Taking sort of a shotgun approach at the beginning and then filling your way out as for what's actually working. It's a lot like just the story of how we got into Zencaster. We were aiming in the wrong direction for quite a while. And so we, one of those BBs landed in the right spot and we got engagement, and then we said, okay, aim everything that way.
That's amazing. Yeah. It is interesting too, because I've learned over the course of my career, both in construction and in this, that you want to be broadly relevant to, all types of different conversations, because you never know when the moment's going to come up where something that you really do well or that you really can help a great deal, you're going to come up with a conversation, and it might be for a different reason than maybe that somebody comes and approaches you for a solution. Again, on this podcast, we have all types of topics about culture and safety and women in construction and HR related things and bootstrapping. And, we have you on talking about digital marketing and podcasting solutions. 90% of our audience probably it doesn't have and may never be on a podcast, but I bet you most of them have heard about or listened to or at least been influenced by people that are doing those things. And so I think, again, you just need to stick your foot in that doorway and, poke your head into the cave and really see if there's something here for you that maybe you're missing out on in your current marketing plan and you really haven't been leveraging yet. So.
Yeah, agree 100%.
So when you're, just kind of wrapping up the general conversation, obviously you've been on quite a journey. It sounds like, 7 or 8 years or more. And where you're at now is probably a completely different place. Like you said, you were pointed a totally different direction. But in all of that, zigging and zagging and in the left and the right turns and maybe the U-turns in some cases, what is one of the things that you've really learned that surprised you quite a bit about just this approach to the market in general that you've taken with your product?
Man, there's been so many. Let me think of, maybe I'll list off a few. The first one was when we were trying to help musicians. We were all programmers and engineers. Programmers share code back and forth. They're very like, it's open source. We thought like, hey, this is going to be great for musicians. We just didn't do enough market research outside of that. We were musicians and programmers, and so we thought this was a great idea. What we found is most musicians are highly, highly protective of their content, because that could be their hit. You'd be like, oh, this is great. You put your content out there. Somebody can remix it now. And they're like, whoa, who, what? They're no. And they're like, oh, but no, it'll be cool. So I think part of it is just, I was, be more curious than I think we were. We came into it with thinking that everybody was going to think about it in our way, and didn't do enough just out there canvassing, talking to more and more people. Eventually we figured that out as we did. But that was one thing that sort of surprised me just about that market. The other thing, I guess, would be just how much, and this is more maybe more relevant in the technology space, but podcasting had been around for 15 years by the time, maybe 10, 15 years by the time I got to the space. And so it was seen as a very mature market at the time, and that there maybe wasn't a lot that was going to be improved or whatever. And then, then it sort of hit its growth curve after we started building in it. And so, there's always, you never know what sort of, what impact some new technology can have on a given space. And so we like to be, always trying out the latest new whatever in innovations in the space, and be the ones that get there before, maybe the big behemoths in the space. They move too slow. It takes some time to even catch on to the new things, and then or even to then especially dedicate resources and build a team and go after it. And so hang out on that fringe of technology, be nimble, is a good place to hang out if you're, maybe smaller than a lot of the big competitors. And you never know what can really be a big new innovation in what seems like an old and established space.
Yeah, I love that. I always say, I've used this analogy with our company a lot of times too, as we've grown. I used to say, some of these other companies, they're like a cruise ship. Like, it's really hard to turn them, and we're zipping around a speedboat. So it's like, if we need to do something, we can just move and make it happen. And the bigger you get, the harder that becomes. So I think, and defining really who you want to be, or who you want your company to be when it grows up, so to speak, or when it grows to a certain size. If that's your aspiration, then, I think that's great advice. Be nimble and hang out on the fringe of what companies in your space are doing, so that you can take advantage and be an early adopter of something that might be a game changer for your business.
Yeah. Well said.
Love that. Well, this has been a very fun conversation. I didn't know exactly how it was going to go or not, but I've really enjoyed learning from you, and also some of your journey. Is there one takeaway that you would really want to close out with and hope that people remember from our conversation today?
Yeah, just get your voice out there. Don't be afraid to share your vision. That's what people care about the most, is, the passion that you have for how you can help them out. And the more they hear, the more opportunities they have to hear it on different platforms, the better.
That's awesome. Well said. Well, thanks again, Josh. I've really enjoyed having this conversation. And remember, for the audience, it is Zencaster.com. Is that right? Is that where we find you?
Zencaster.com if you're a podcaster. If you are trying to get your voice heard by making social clips and you don't have a podcast, go to Zen AI, and we can even connect you with a producer to help interview you and pull that vision and that passion out of you and get that shared with your audience.
Love it. Highly encourage the audience to do that. I think we're going to partake of that goodness here on our side as well. So thanks again, Josh. Lots of fun to have this conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
Thank you for joining us today on the Mobile Workforce Podcast, sponsored by About Time Technologies and WorkMax. If you liked the conversation we had today, or were able to learn anything new or helpful, please make sure to follow us on our WorkMax page on LinkedIn and on Instagram at WorkMax_. And subscribe to the show on iTunes or your preferred podcast platform so you will never miss another insightful episode. Also, If you enjoyed the podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating and review and share the show with your friends and colleagues. Your support means the world to us and will allow us to continue providing impactful information with others looking to improve their results in their business and, in turn, their life.